We delve into the heart of what truly matters, our families. Healthy families make healthy societies. I'm Randy.
And I'm Leslie. We're diving deep into the powerful insights of Dr. Randy's groundbreaking book, The Family Legacy: Shaping Culture from the Inside Out.
Hear inspiring stories and strategies to transform your family. We'll explore topics like communication, forgiveness, healing, parenting, marriage. We'll cover it all.
We'll have provoking conversations with experts, coaches, and real-life families who are benefiting from intentional family building.
This podcast isn't just about theories, it's about tools that you can implement today.
We all come from families, so this podcast is for you.
Join us on this incredible family journey. Subscribe now as we learn to do family as God designed.
Transforming families one episode at a time. Remember, whoever wins the family wins the culture in the end. Let's go. Well, hello, everyone.
Hello again.
Welcome back to Transforming Families with Randy and Leslie. I am Leslie.
And I'm Randy.
And we are going to be talking about blind spots in our marriage today. We're coming up on our 6-week unified marriage challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And so today we wanted to cover what is a blind spot, also known as a dead spot.
Yeah, fascinating.
Ooh, the ominous music in the background. So darling, why don't you take us? What is a blind spot or a dead spot?
Yeah, and just to tell you, the reason we're talking about this is because a number of people have heard, the podcast of recent and the marriage challenge, and it's amazing to hear the number of excuses that people find for not investing time or money or energy into something that they say is really important to them. And, we can want things all day long.
Right.
But
everybody wants to be rich, skinny, and what?
Rich, skinny, and happy.
Rich, skinny, and happy. Are we?
But and that's not to be harsh, but it's a blind spot. And I think this is interesting. In dictionary, it says about a blind spot. Here's how it defines a blind spot: an area or a subject about which one is uninformed, prejudiced, or unappreciative. It's also called, in the definition, a dead spot.
Mm-hmm.
Any part of an auditorium or an arena or the like in which a person is unable to see or hear satisfactorily.
I like that first definition, or unappreciative. Ooh,
yeah.
That one stings.
Yeah, and I always grew up hearing about the phrase blind spot used in driving, right? When you are driving a car, you've got your rear view mirrors. And even with, your rear view mirrors set as best you can, there are still spots behind you or to your left or right that you cannot see. Things, down below a certain height in the back of your rear, or things on the rear left or rear right. Even though you position your mirrors well, you can't see them. And a blind spot really represents something that is there, that is a hazard. Mm. If you know, it's those blind spots actually are, if you would swerve to the left, say, and someone is in your left rear blind spot, the chances are you probably hit them. Because they are in a place where they will affect the safety of your decisions if you don't see them and make adjustments. And this is important. How do we deal with blind spots? We have to make adjustments. Number one, right?
Right.
And what kind of adjustments can we make in a car?
When we're driving, we put our signal on to, right, let others know what we're about to do, but we turn our head. We look over our shoulder if we're going to make a lane change to the left, or we look over our right shoulder if we're going to because and I want you to catch this, we're intentionally looking to see what we realize we can't see. Yeah.
So there's an awareness. This is the point. Some drivers don't look, or, another adjustment we can make is we can adjust the mirrors, or we can adjust our head and how we're looking at the angle at the mirror. I'm leaning back and forth here if you're not watching this video. But, we can see different things that are hidden when we make adjustments. And it's not that they're not there, or they're not dangerous, or they're not important to pay attention to. The real question comes is, are we choosing, and this is important, are we choosing to be aware?
Right. And I just had this memory. I had a friend years ago, And the way that he drove was he'd be cruising along, he'd kick on his turn signal, he'd count to 3, and then he would execute. He didn't look. And his thinking, this is really important, his thinking, his belief system, his choice was, hey, I put the turn signal on. If you didn't see it, it's on you. So he took no personal responsibility for looking to see if it was clear. And how often in our marriages, if we're honest, like take a breath and ask the Lord, ooh, are there places in my marriage where I'm hitting the turn signal on, I've shrugged my shoulder, or I've enacted the silent treatment, or pick your little body signal or your behavior with the expectation of, I've just showed you I'm mad. Now it's up to you.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And we're choosing to bring this today because this is one of our last episodes before the upcoming Unified Marriage Challenge. And it's not to manipulate anybody. It's just to give you a clear view that you may need to make some adjustments in your marriage, and it's not too late to join us. You can choose to do the challenge or not do the challenge. You can choose to make adjustments and do the work on your own without the challenge. That's not the point. The point is, we're asking you to ask yourselves, each other, and the Lord in your marriages, what are the blind spots that you need to be aware of? Let's talk about some of those. What are some of the blind spots in marriage that may be hazardous or even dangerous if we don't see them, pay attention to them, and make adjustments? Here's one. Oh, everything will just work itself out over time. How about that one?
Oh yeah, time just takes care of everything. Time, what's that phrase? Time heals all wounds.
No, it doesn't.
Hit the brakes. No, it does not. As a matter of fact, untended to wounds actually get worse over time. They might scab over, but that infection is still there. And over time, it wreaks more havoc than if you would tend to it in the first place. So time, that is just, I don't know where that phrase came from, but it's a lie from the pit of hell in my estimation.
Yeah, it just suppressing it, masking it, just doesn't remove it. It just lets it fester.
Yeah.
And it's that pressure cooker. We just push down another issue that we don't want to address, right? There's another one. Well, I don't want to address these things in my marriage because I have found that if I just avoid it, I'll be okay.
Or we justify that one with, here's one. Here's our little Christianese. I'm going to be the peacemaker here. And so I'm not going to ruffle the waters. I'm going to die to myself. And right.
And it's partial truth in there.
Dying to yourself has got to come from a place of you are so filled up with the love of God. You so know who you are that is the position that we can be in order to consider others more important than ourselves. It comes from a place of being full. Why do you think Jesus was able to do what he did? He was able to do what he did because firstly, he was God, right? And he loved, and because he knew who he was as a son of God, it was his choice, but he was full of everything that he needed to do in order to love sacrificially. So don't confuse true sacrificial love with, well, I'm just a peacemaker.
And Jesus, right? This is your example. Here's another blind spot. We just think, well, I'll just tolerate it. It's not that big of a deal. I'll just tolerate it. Well, tolerations over time create bitterness and resentment. And resentment and bitterness over time create all kinds of problems, right? Knowingly or unknowingly, if we don't stop and address those things, we have this in our "oh no" tool that we talked about earlier. We get right into revenge where it's tit for tat. Hey, if your marriage, right? Well, I'm doing this because she's doing that. Well, I'm not going to clean up you use the example, my clothes off the floor because she's not.
It irritates him.
She's not whatever doing something that I want. And, so this is so vitally important. Now we all have our own blind spots. And one of the important things is that we take responsibility as much as it depends on ourselves, right? For me and you, for Leslie, we take responsibility, personal responsibility for what the blind spots that I have. And it requires some energy. It requires some time and some reflection with the Lord or with myself or
intentionality
with my spouse or a trusted friend. Jesus did this, to your point. He didn't tolerate things. He asked questions. He didn't avoid things. He drew them out. He actually, even at times, just lovingly, but spoke the truth in love and provoked people because what is inside of them couldn't handle what he was, asking and bringing. And so we each have blind spots of our own self. That's what I'm talking about. But we also, Leslie and I in our marriage, we're one. We talk about this in Unified, mutually indwelling one another. What a design. And so I actually have responsibility as one to work with Leslie to see that, hey, honey, do we have any blind spots?
Yeah, and that's really important. That's a really good point. From a place of oneness, and if you're a believer, you are God says you're one. You're one flesh, and you're one with Him. This is what we're really covering in depth and in 6 different areas in your marriage. So if Randy has a blind spot, I have a blind spot. And if you find yourself and you're in this situation where you're like, well, I can see my wife or my husband has a blind spot in this area, but I've told them, I'm like, look, you're not seeing this. This is the way it is. And you're listening to my tone of my voice. And we're making it about them. It's their issue. It's their blind spot. If you do that in your marriage, I promise you, you are not unified in a lot of areas. You're not unified in mind. You're not unified in emotion.
Yeah.
Like you're not unified in spirit. And I say that in love, where we want to reveal. We cannot heal what's not revealed.
Yeah, that's so good.
And those are what blind spots are. They're areas in our life and in our marriages where we're not seeing it. And unless it can be exposed, we don't have an opportunity to heal it.
Yeah, that's really important. And so here's what unified and being one as God designed is. We're going to talk about this in the marriage challenge, that there's nothing that separates.
Yeah.
Nothing that separates. So nothing in our emotions that we aren't willing to share, to know and be known, to divulge, to reveal, because it's safe. And there's nothing that Leslie will, anything in our thinking or in our bodies, and we're talking generally, but let's be a little bit more specific. When it comes to being unified in body, having a physical intimacy is really important. And that is one of the major areas where couples fight and argue and don't meet each other's needs and don't understand what it's like to be one.
They won't be vulnerable.
With nothing separating. But we make other choices if we don't fix it, if we don't lean into it and see what's in that blind spot and deal with it, bring it back into agreement with God and each other so we're one, then we tolerate it and it festers.
Yeah.
And it causes all kinds of problems. That's just one area. But it's the same around money. It's the same around parenting your children. It's the same about decisions, major decisions that are made about where to live and what to do for a career and what friends to be with or not be with or how to spend your weekend. I mean, it comes down to anything that separates and pulls us apart. There may be a blind spot there. And I don't know of anything that is worth value that doesn't require effort, time, energy, right? And so there are still a lot of blind spots around people, even in something like, why won't I do the work? Whether it's on my own or with my spouse or attending a challenge, why don't I? Well, here's one, the time poverty.
Oh, there's one.
Don't have enough time. I'm too busy. You don't understand. I have kids and we have sports, and we get it. We understand that's true. And if that's always the case, who's in charge of making all those decisions
right.
about how we spend our time?
Listen, I've said this for so many years. People that choose to have extramarital affairs. We're gonna take a break here in just a second. But people that choose to go outside their marriage to have their physical needs met, and the energy that it takes to plan and to sneak around and to hide the money and find the time to sneak around. Like there's a lot of effort that goes into having an extramarital affair. And if you would take a quarter of that energy and put it into your marriage, you're going to exponentially have better results in your marriage. And make no mistake, unresolved, they may seem like small things right now in your marriage where you're not unified around these 6 areas that we've been talking about. You're like, oh, it's not that big a deal. But over time, it becomes a big deal. And the proof is in the pudding. The divorce rate is just as high in the Christian community as it is in the secular world. And if you don't think that post-divorce, you're going to be scrambling now to divide your time with your kids, and there is a lot of wreckage and a reorganization of your time that will happen outside of a divorce. If you've been divorced, you know exactly what we're talking about here. So why wouldn't you make that investment? We're talking 6 weeks, 90-minute Zoom classes with eternal fruit.
Yeah, for $99 if you get the early bird rate, right now. That's the current class. So like, wow, that is not a lot of, that's a price of a date.
Yeah, nowadays.
Really, anymore. And you say, well, that's a blind spot for me. I don't have the money, right? And I know things are tight. And there's a lot of other excuses. Don't have the time. Here's one. I'm so tired and so busy, I don't have the energy. And the truth is, we have what we're most committed to. We talk about this, that we can want a great marriage all day long. We can desire it. We can long for it. But we actually have in real time what we are most committed to. And maybe that sounds harsh, and don't mean it harsh, but it's a good mirror. It's that, the adjustment that we need to make on that rear view mirror is that, wow, I need to see things the way they really are, right? My marriage could be better. My intimacy could be better. There's things separating us. I do my things, and there's some things that are secret, or things that are hidden, or things I just, do that I don't share. There's things that separate the relationship. And so when we come back, we're going to talk about, listen, every one of those blind spots has costs and benefits. And then we're going to talk about what we can do about it. But right now, we're going to send you to the break, and hope you'll watch this ad and consider joining us for the Unified Marriage Challenge.
Sometimes challenges in marriage can feel overwhelming, especially when there are areas of separation around money, parenting, or sex, leading us to, oh, well, this is as good as it's going to get.
Most pain in marriage comes from being separate. God's design for marriage is oneness. Oneness is the prize of marriage.
But what is oneness practically in our day-to-day life? And how do we get there from here?
Hi, Dr. Randy and Leslie from the Family Reformation Project. We empower couples with practical tools and support to help break the cycles of separation.
We've turned our coaching sessions for couples into the Unified 6-Week Marriage Challenge.
Through 6 experiential classes and 6 challenges over 6 weeks, you will learn how to be unified in 6 key areas. Unified in design, spirit, mind, will, emotion, and body.
It's not too late to transform your marriage forever. Join us for the Unified 6-Week Marriage Challenge. Click on the link below to register today and get unified for the price of a date. Welcome back. We're talking about blind spots in our marriages, and we want to pose the question, what is it costing you to not address those blind spots?
Well, it's costing intimacy. And here's the bigger thing. I mean, this might not seem as tangible, but it's very real. Whoever wins the family wins the culture in the end.
So true.
And the truth about families is this: healthy marriages create healthy families right at the get-go, right? That's where the family starts, is in a marriage.
And again, this doesn't matter if your kids are little or they're grown. Your kids are watching you, even if they're grown. They're watching the way you do marriage. We don't stop modeling marriage just because our kids are grown and leave the house. I think really the big core thing that it costs us is it costs us the fullness of our design.
Yeah.
We are cheating ourselves out of God's design for marriage, and we're choosing that.
Yeah. Well, it costs a unhappy marriage. It costs pain. It costs distance emotionally. It costs arguments. How many arguments is it going to take before we realize that those arguments separate us?
Yeah.
That words hurt. One of the things we're going to talk about, in the challenge is around unity in body is not just sexually. Our tongues, though they are small, are one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful member of our body. The scripture says
rudder of a
life
ship, right?
and death are in the tongue.
Right.
And it costs us every time we don't speak lovingly, kindly, with patience. Every time we speak harshly, bitterly, where we say things that
Have a
wound, that kill,
Yeah.
words that kill, it is devastating.
Right.
And I had a professor one time, real quick, that said, in life, we go with what we know. That's why we need to be transformed. And so your point about kids, we're modeling for our children what marriage is like, and they will go with what they know. And this is the truth. You look at your own life, and some of the things, sometimes people react the opposite, like, well, I'm not doing what my mom and dad did.
The exact opposite, and yet they end up doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Those vows.
So we go with what we know. That really is power. It costs a lot to not do marriage as designed.
Yeah. And conversely, what are the benefits?
Yeah.
What are the benefits? I mean, we talked about, they're just the opposite of the costs, right? It's we live in wholeness, fullness with each other. We're living by design. We're getting what we need from the source, our Father. We're in every area. We are speaking life. There's a Proverbs, about a woman that will tear down her family with her words. And there's another proverb that talks about husbands doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Like, guys, life and death are in the tongue.
Yeah.
And the beautiful benefit, we are the speaking species.
Yeah.
We've talked about this in earlier podcasts. We are the only species that speaks. And there's so much power in that.
Here's the benefit. The arguing stops. Wouldn't that be something? Here's a benefit. There's peace.
You don't go to bed with your toes pointed in the opposite direction.
Here's a benefit. Your physical intimacy is through the roof.
Yeah.
And you get the fullness of the joy in it. Here's a benefit. We laugh a lot more. And that laughter is good, like a medicine to the soul.
Yeah.
And our children are getting that example. Here's a benefit. People want to be around us more, and we want to be around each other more. It's not just for us, but the benefits of, and this is kind of the flip side, but the benefits of not doing the work and making the adjustments on your blind spots. I get to be right. I get to not have to work hard. I get to be comfortable. I get to avoid, uncomfortable conversations. These are real benefits to some people. They are the reason why they don't do the work, for example.
Yeah, I get to be the victim here. I don't have to take personal responsibility.
I got somebody to blame.
Which is original anatomy of dissent, right? Blame.
Yeah. And so we really get to pick our set of costs and benefits. What's it going to cost to work on the marriage? Well, it's going to take some time, some energy. It's going to take some discomfort, maybe. It's going to take some vulnerability and transparency and intentionality. Might take a little bit of money. It might take a little time. It might take, you put on this, there is a cost and a benefit to either choice that we make.
I'll just say this, like, think about our bodies. We get, none of us get fat or out of shape overnight. It just doesn't happen that way. It happens over time, and it's a series of choices to not work out and to eat the wrong things, yada, yada, yada. And so when we finally choose, like, okay, I'm going to start that road back. I'm going to turn the rudder of the ship. Right? I'm going to choose, and I'm not going to get fit and drop the weight overnight, but it starts with a decision, and I'm going to shift my focus, just that little tiny shift. And it may take a little bit of time to get your marriage back on course. if it's gotten really fat and out of shape.
Mhm.
And maybe you're in really good shape and you want to go faster, farther,
Mhm.
right? You want to just, what do they call it? Trim the sail of your sailboat. Let's say you're a believing couple, you're doing family God's way, you're on the right course.
It's not bad. It's good.
It's good.
But it's not great.
But you have this sense that, our days here are numbered. And you just want to trim that sail a little bit and get there faster, further. Towards your purpose.
Yeah, and this is so good. So by definition of the blind spot, it's something unseen, unheard, unknown. So some of you are aware of there are blind spots back there. There are hazards back there, and you're making a choice whether to deal with them or not. And there's costs and benefits with that. But some of us, we're not aware, or we're not aware of all of them. We don't see the problem.
Turn blind.
We argue, but we don't know why. We don't know how to fix it. We don't know what the thinking is that we're taking into these constant arguments.
It's usually the same one too. If you think back on what do you argue about, it's probably the same thing over and over again. And you've tried to perhaps approach it from a different place, but it's still because you never actually solved the issue. And some of the tools that you're going to pick up in this marriage challenge are going to teach you how to do that practically. And it's not hard. It is not hard. It just requires a choice and intentionality.
Why is it not hard?
It's not hard because when we reach a place of surrender, we're talking to believers here, right? We surrender our will.
There you go.
Right? I surrender my will to do my marriage your way, Father.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to surrender that to you. And when we posture, this is important, when we posture ourselves in a posture of surrender, we open ourselves up then to empty out our will, lay it out there, and we're able then to fully receive everything that God has to pour into us, all of the strength, all of the strategy, all of the things, the character qualities of him. We're not blocked.
We just do.
Yeah. And
so you're going to either choose to, whatever you choose to do, you're going to listen to some of this, do it on your own. You're going to ignore it. You're going to make excuses. You're going to sign up, but here's a couple of things we want to give you. We give practical tools here. This unified marriage challenge is a way for you to totally shift the course of your marriage as you understand it and with tools of how to move forward. But that's not all. You can go to our family school. You can take our family classes. You can get on our social media or listen to past podcasts. There's a number of ways that we are getting the message out to families, to couples, to marriages. And we hope and pray that you will make the adjustments, adjust that rear view mirror, adjust those side mirrors, move up and down so you can actually see the hazards that are back there that you need to be aware of. And we hope that you'll choose to invest in your marriage. All right. And that's all I have for today. You?
That's it.
All right.
Remember,
go ahead.
Whoever wins the family
wins the culture in the end.
We'll see you next time.
And that wraps up another inspiring episode of Transforming Families with Randy and Leslie. We hope that today's conversation has left you feeling empowered and equipped to take action.
Remember, transforming families begins with transforming ourselves. Let's be intentional, loving, and persevere. You're not alone. We're right here with you.
We believe Proverbs 24:3. Wise people are builders. They build families, businesses, and communities. Through intelligence and insight, their enterprises are established and endure.
Thanks for joining us today. We encourage you to stay connected with us on social media, join our email list, and learn more about our resources and classes at the Family School by visiting thefamilyreformationproject.com.
Remember to subscribe, share with your loved ones, and spread the word about transforming families. We'll see you on our next episode. And remember, whoever wins the family wins the culture in the end.